Princess Cruises' Crown Princess has just left Fremantle, the last Australian port of call before she makes a 113-day trip around the world returning to Sydney. This is a unique voyage because the ship itself is undertaking an Australian-based world cruise, which is quite unusual in this part of the world, with the ship carrying predominantly Australian passengers on board this world cruise. It will take 113 days for the ship to return to Sydney, where she departed last week, and Fremantle was the last opportunity to pick up passengers on this iconic voyage around the world. Crown Princess sailed into Fremantle on the 11th of June, and she arrived quite late. In fact, she was supposed to arrive early in the morning, but didn't make her way into the port until 4 p.m. This is due to the fact that there was unfavourable weather conditions in the Great Australian Bight when the ship was making her way here from Adelaide. I was fortunate enough to spend some time on board Crown Princess before she set sail from Australia, and I arrived at the pier to see a whole heap of activity taking place. This was the last port for them to store up on Australian-based goods, and there was a lot of activity taking place on the pier, bringing all sorts of items on board the ship. And I watched with interest as the trucks loaded pallets of soft drinks straight into the ship using an extendable arm. So it's quite an interesting thing to see. Now, it is winter in Australia, so some of you might wonder, why are they sending a ship on a world cruise in the Southern Ocean during Australian winter season? Well, there's a number of reasons for this. Firstly, when this voyage was announced, the ship was going to sail north and head through the Suez Canal, but of course, with the issues that are happening in the Gulf of Suez at the moment, they have rerouted this voyage via Cape Town. That being said, for the majority of this cruise, the ship will be in the Northern Hemisphere, and after leaving Fremantle, it does sail to South Africa and then heads up north, up the west coast of Africa, to take in a number of ports in Europe. So most of the time that you'll be on board the ship, you'll actually be in the Northern Hemisphere and therefore in the Northern Summer. Now, despite the ship arriving late, the wonderful team at Princess did allow me on board the ship to explore the ship and tour the vessel to get some footage for a tour video which will be on the channel soon. But whilst I was on board, I did pick up on the electric atmosphere on the ship. It seemed like everybody, passengers and crew, were excited for the long and exciting journey ahead. There were a lot of people boarding the ship in Fremantle, over 200 in fact, and there was long queues in the terminal, but the atmosphere seemed quite upbeat as people waited to get on board the ship. And fortunately, because they were boarding at dinner time, they could get on board the ship and go straight into the dining rooms, which were all open despite the fact that most people had gone ashore. Now, with the ship arriving late into Fremantle, they did change the itinerary slightly, and she actually overnighted in Fremantle, so she departed on the 12th of June for the next leg of her world cruise. This meant that the passengers and crew who were on board the ship since Sydney, where she originated this voyage, could spend some time in Fremantle and also go as far afield as Perth, the capital city of Western Australia. Crown Princess is a 113,000-ton Grand Class cruise ship and is of a similar size to the two Grand Class cruise ships that are based here year-round, the Carnival Adventure and Carnival Encounter. The floor plan on board is almost identical, so I felt very familiar on board the ship as I walked my way around exploring this ship. Of course, the interior is quite different because it has that princess interior that so many people are fond of. The ship itself entered service in 2006 and is one of the ships that Princess uses to test out and trial new markets. Some of the highlights on board the ship include the enormous Princess Theatre, which has great sightlines from all of the seats that I could see at least, and also Movies Under the Stars, which was set up and ready to go for passengers who are embarking on the ship in Fremantle. The ship also has a wonderful nightclub right at the top of the ship called Skywalkers, and this is set just behind the funnel and allows for fantastic panoramic views out the aft of the ship and the port and starboard sides. There's a number of different dining facilities on board, and they were all abuzz and ready for passengers who are boarding the ship to enjoy the experience on board. And the entire ship is medallion enabled as well. So look out in the near future for a full tour of this ship on my channel. Thanks of course to the team at Princess for allowing me on board, even though the ship arrived late. So what do you think about an Australian-based world cruise, and would you travel on 113 days on one ship? This ship's going to spend quite a lot of time in Europe, and she actually even goes into the Mediterranean and goes as far afield as Barcelona and Valencia. So there is a number of different experiences that passengers will enjoy on this voyage. She also takes in a number of ports in the UK before returning to Australia and finally disembarking her passengers in Sydney. Thanks once again for watching, and until next time, I hope to see you on board.